office. I'd like to welcome you to our discussion on entrepreneurs pivoting their businesses. A few quick ground rules for today's event. We ask that everyone turn their camera and microphone off during the program. If you have a question, please use the chat function. My colleague, Katie DeMaio, will monitor the chat and make sure the questions are asked. Finally, just a reminder, as you just saw, this event is being recorded and will be placed in our virtual archives to be enjoyed by those who could not make it today. So whether you're an alumnus, parent, student, staff, or a friend, you're an important part of a thriving global Northeastern community. And our community is never stronger than when we come together at events like this. Learning does not stop when you walk across the stage and receive your diploma from Northeastern. Our alumni are eager to stay at the top of their fields, and programs like this help them achieve that. As we all know, entrepreneurial journeys are all unique, and our alumni network is always open to share their experience and allow the network to learn from their experiences. I encourage our alumni to share their ideas for future events that they may have, or future learning opportunities that they'd like to see from our office. Again, today's program is geared towards sharing experiences around the decisions that go into pivoting a business. We're very fortunate today to have a student with us, William Sorrell. He'll be a 2021 graduate of the College of Engineering. Will is a member of our Student Alumni and Ambassadors group. He's here. He's going to tell you a little bit about his story, his Northeastern experience, especially in these changing times, and then introduce our great moderator. So Will, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jack. Hi, my name is William Sorrell. I'm a mechanical engineering student currently at Northeastern. And my journey first began at Northeastern in 2017, where I was part of the Yewande program, where I went off to Greece for my first semester of college. So that was exciting. And then I came back to Boston in the subsequent spring and had a very traditional college experience, living on campus, going to class. And of course, all of that has changed where we have COVID. So now we have NU Flex in place where you have the option of going to class, or you're also encouraged to stay home and video conference in, assuming that you're not in compliance with testing and all that. So you kind of have the option between these two learning platforms. So that has kind of been my experience currently on campus. And of course, I'm also part of SAA, Student Alumni Ambassadors, where we connect students with former Huskies. And we do events like Interview a Former Husky, where we have an alumni guest speaker come in and talk with students, kind of tell them what happens post-grad, kind of to prepare you for life in general, and just connect students with alumni. So that's my story, and I'm going to pass it off to a great partner of the NU entrepreneurial ecosystem. She is the Associate Director of the McCarthy Venture Mentoring Network, Katie Hemphill.
Thank you so much, William, and thanks for sharing your story about how campus has changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. We really appreciate your insights. So good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Hemphill, and as William said, I'm the Associate Director of the McCarthy's Venture Mentoring Network, which specifically works on finding our ventures in the Northeastern ecosystem mentors to help with their business needs. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is hand the virtual microphone over to Yewande to do an introduction, and then to Glen. We have pretty incredible entrepreneurs joining us here this evening, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit more about themselves. Yewande?
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Yonde Massey. I am a 2009 Husky grad. I actually went to the School of Criminal Justice and have since moved into business. The name of my company is actually Ornami Skincare, and I am happy to be connected with the VMN network as well as Idea Ventures. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Yewande. Glen?
Hi, everybody. My name's Glen Giovannucci. I'm a 1983 graduate, business administration. I loved being at Northeastern. I played on the hockey team when I was there. greatest hockey team in NU history. We went to the Final Four, number 3 in the country, putting a little help there for my friend, Coach Madigan. And right now, I am the CEO of a company called G-Form. We make sports protective padding and equipment. Prior to that, I worked in senior level sales positions with Puma, Adidas, Reebok, and most recently a licensed company. I went there because I was running out of footwear brands. I went to a licensed company called Fanatics. So if you look up Fanatics, it's a big operation. And I was running a $1 billion business there. So I'm happy to be here to work with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Glenn. I want to remind everyone who's joining us today, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Katie will be, the other Katie, will be monitoring the chat for us and hopping in where necessary and as appropriate throughout the conversation this evening. So to start off with, Glenn, I'm actually going to go back to you. I'd love to hear more about your story, right? And how you kind of helped a business change what it is they were offering. And specifically, I'd love to hear, how you came to the decision and what kind of data you used to make that decision. And Yewande, the same question is coming to you next.
So when our brick and mortar retail partners, think about Dick's Sporting Goods, close their doors in March, we had to find a way to produce other products or we would be in bankruptcy in 60 days. We were and when I started, we were a very underfunded company. So it was important to move quickly. So we started to research PPE products because they became, critically important in the market. And to serve the people in the hospitals and throughout the country. So we didn't have the equipment to make face masks or surgical gloves, respirators, medical gowns, hand sanitizer, which is very disconcerting. Our last option was face shields. We did not have a supply chain. So we basically had to will this to happen. And everyone on the senior leadership team contributed. The first week we started manufacturing face shields, we produced 1,500. And we were high-fiving each other. But the market was getting hot. Within 10 days, we were producing 250,000 per week. And we're selling them in channels we had never engaged before. We figured out how to do it. It wasn't easy. There's a lot of mistakes because we didn't have experience in those sales channels. But to date, we sold $5 million worth of face shields to hospitals, nursing home, government agencies like FEMA, CIA. But the best part, the one that I'm most proud of, is we created a production partner network, which there were 5 other companies who were in our situation, basically going out of business. We hired 5 of them, and they helped us make face shields so we can meet the demand. As a result, we saved 250 jobs. So that was how we got going on the decision.
That's great. Thank you, Glenn. And truly, thank you for your service during this pandemic. Obviously, what it is you're making is crucial and we need it. So we very much appreciate it. Yewande, I know that, you have a very different business and your story is very different. So I'd love to hear, kind of the same information from you.
Sure. So originally, my company was selling hair extensions. We were known as Ornami Hair Inc. And I've always had a vision of having a diverse community of women that could have a custom experience with beauty. So the idea was to have 4 different hair types of hair extensions and that people could order. They would take a quiz, etc. They were human hair extensions, so they were not cheap. But I just wasn't having that much traction with the business. And initially to invest in marketing, influencers, et cetera, was kind of expensive because you have to, factor in the cost of the product, et cetera. How I got into skincare, I always tell people, was a bit of a mistake. It was my boyfriend at the time. He picked up some shea butter while we were in West Africa. He was complaining about how it wasn't easy to use. I said, let me see what I can do. A good friend of mine, actually, she's a Northeastern grad as well. She came over and she tried it and she said, how much is it? And I was like, I wasn't really expecting to sell it. I kind of threw a number off the top of my head. She told people while I was at work, and people just kept purchasing, right? So, but I was really tied to the idea of the hair extensions because that was my baby, right? So I would do pop-up shops and kind of sample the skincare just to see what the market was really after. And that was really what got the most, like, people were just emotionally connected to it. I think there was something about the instant gratification of putting on, as opposed to hair extensions, which required them to then go to find a hairstylist, etc. This was just such an easy, just like a mini vacation, right? So what made me make this and to move completely into it was, first of all, the lifetime customer value for skincare and personal care was way more. The customer purchases every 2 to 3 months, whereas with the hair extensions, every 9 months to a year. I also, the conversions, my conversions was at least 3 times more the conversion rate with the hair extensions. And then my thought process was the brand awareness. I wanted people to leave reviews, and they were much more, for social proof, they were much more prone to leave reviews for skincare than they were for hair care, because the price point was just such a smaller amount that you had more customers in general. So that's pretty much how I made the decision. Those are the factors I kept in mind.
Interesting. Thanks so much, Yewande. And just as a shout out, I am a customer. I've left a review. Yes, you can find me on social for Ornami Skincare. I highly recommend the No Scrubs exfoliator in particular. And I am a repeat customer. So you're right, kind of about lifetime value of customers here. So Glen, I'd like to bring the conversation back over to you and your experience here. Specifically, I'd like to hear about how you took over management of a small cultureless and failing company and quickly turned it around.
Okay, so when I was hired as the CEO by the board of directors, they told me all I really had was leadership. Not really. When I checked under the hood, I found out they were wrong, and actually didn't quite know everything that was going on with the business. Like, we were operating month to month with little cash to make payroll, get unpaid bills paid off. We had a sales team with no direction and no leadership skills. So within a few weeks, I fired 3 VPs of sales, hired new ones through recruiting from my own network, promoting from within, which people liked, and stealing our direct competitors' head of sales. Why? Because in any senior role, as soon as you start the new job, you're on the clock. You're on the clock. They're checking you out. They're seeing what you're doing, and you need to show significant results within 12 to 18 months. What I tried to do was build a leadership team quickly, and I built a great my career, and they embraced my vision for G-Form. Within 2 months, those sales VPs took our sales rep total from 8 to 40. Each hire had a specialty experience in their own channels. And we operate in mountain biking or biking in general, baseball and soccer globally. And the result was incredible, opening major global accounts and driving sales increases. Prior to me arriving, for 10 years, the company never messaged how the technology worked in our products. I mean, it's kind of elementary, I'm sure, for everybody who's on this Zoom call, but that's really what happened. So a small company needs to have strong messaging on all social media platforms these days, and we sucked at it, really. It's terrible. So we worked together as a group, rebranded our technology and called it SmartFlex, then created concise messaging points that consumers would really understand, and finally created an incredible amount of content that would demonstrate how our technology worked in action in each sport. So for example, think of a mountain biker crashing or a baseball player taking a high pitch to the elbow. We were showing hero shots, it didn't express what we were all about. So another thing, I can't tell you everything, but another thing I did was, on my 3rd day, I found out that there was friction between the woman who ran engineering at G-Form and the guy who ran production. She felt, and I believed, that he was being difficult with her, borderline abusive. So I sat him down in my office immediately. He was probably the most important person in our company because he was the first employee, invented the technology, but he apparently used that as status to be difficult with my engineer. I told him I wouldn't tolerate this crap and not tolerate his behavior. Suspended him, explained to him there would be no second chance. You do it again, you're out. I don't really care. No one person is bigger than the company. Regardless of your title, everybody should feel safe at work. And that's a message that I was trying to spread. The word got around our building quick, that I would protect our employees and eliminate the bad ones. And the employees really hadn't seen anything like that. It's just true leadership. The last point is communication. There had never really been a regular cadence of town hall type meetings with all the employees. They were out of the loop. They came in, they kind of punched the clock, did their job, and ran out at 5 p.m. And you're in order to be a successful company, which I've been part of many successful companies, you need to create that communication. So we created a monthly town hall, and the employees eat it up right now. We're a small company, and I told them my door's always open. So come see me when you want to, direct contact with the CEO, and they do. I want them to know that I care about them and want them to be part of our success, because you're only as good as your team. So, those things, I try to condense it a little bit into, how I tried to make, create a culture that worked and would back up everybody on the team. So that's what I got.
Right. I really appreciate that, Glenn. And I appreciate you sharing examples, right, of kind of your success strategies, because I think that's really what we focus on in panels like this. We want to walk away with some actionable items. So thank you. Speaking of success, Yewande, I want to come back to you and your company, because I know, you were talking about being really tied to the initial vision, right, of Origami hair. And so you had to make this difficult decision, right, to pivot, which was going to benefit your business. And what I'm wondering is, how did you define success when making this decision, especially because you were so tied, right, to that initial mission? And what kinds of resources did you use to make your decision, right? You mentioned mentors earlier, were there mentors or literature that came into play that really helped you make your decision? We'd love to hear more about that.
So it definitely wasn't easy. I will say that I am lucky that I had a tribe of people around me that were honest with me. So my sisters actually had to have a come to Jesus moment with me, where they're like, look, give the people what they want, right? So it was just, look at what people are purchasing, look at what people have the most emotional reaction to, in which they feel something, right? Because a lot of what beauty and personal care is about a feeling. And what for me was defining success is when I did pop-up shops, how excited people were, how many orders I got of that, and versus the hair extension. And the thing that they mentioned to me is like, you don't have to throw the hair extensions away. It just, you know what I mean? But focus on one thing, do that one thing well, and then maybe you can expand into other things in the future. But what for me was the success was, hey, are people buying? Do they recognize the brand? And do they actually know what we do? Because people were confused. There was a lot more education around hair extensions. What does it mean? How do you use it? As opposed to body butter and body scrub. Do you know, like that? They were pretty well educated, and it was such a small investment, as opposed to hair extensions for $300, and then to apply them another $300 to $500. Like that's such a huge investment. So those were the main things. And then for resources, I identified, what my gaps were. I'm operationally, that's one of my skills, strategy. However, marketing is not one of my skills. So I was able to, actually your team, your mentoring network reached out to me, and the resources at Northeastern post-grad, mean this wholeheartedly, are phenomenal for entrepreneurs. It's just every kind of resource. If you reach out to someone, they can help you. And I'm like, hey, I need help with marketing, and also with supply chain, because I'm trying to figure out how to scale this thing. And they were the ones that asked me the tough questions and really pushed me and held me accountable, So if I ask them, is this in line with what my brand is representing? What do you feel when you see this logo? So I think it's really important to be really intentional about who you surround yourself with and what questions that, how they're going to push you.
I really appreciate that, Yewande. And I think some of the lessons learned here are give the people what they want, right? Customer discovery doesn't necessarily end after you have your first, most viable product produced. So, I appreciate your openness to continued learning, right? And kind of listening to the customers that surrounded you. I think the other lesson learned there is it takes a tribe, right? To really get through what it is you need to and understand from different perspectives. It's so important to have a diversity of perspectives, right? When you're kind of considering these sorts of tough decisions. So I really appreciate that. Still kind of continuing on the success conversation, Glenn, I'd like to know from you, how did market, product, and competition factor into your decision, right? To kind of change what your company was doing?
Sure. So the market was wide open in the face shield business because, I mean, I never even heard of face shields before we started making them. And it was wide open because we didn't know, who created face shields. We didn't have any idea who the competition was. It was literally the wild, wild west. How could we get product? No supply chain, no customer base. It was kind of crazy. So you really have to rely on your team to continually drive and open doors and create opportunities. And we had a good reason to do it because we all would have been out of a job if we didn't get it done. So there was serious motivation. The market was wide open because most of the products that were in hospitals, places like that, were made in China. So end users reaching out because of the huge demand to China to get reorders on the products they currently ordered, found out that the US was really busting their chops because China was the country that invented COVID-19. So it went from like a 2-week delivery cycle to like a 10 to 12-week delivery cycle to get the Chinese product into the US, and sometimes even more. So that was the opening that we had because we were domestic to get into the marketplace. We just had to take advantage of what was there when it was there because, for example, we were selling face shields for like $4 a shield. Now you can buy the Chinese ones that are in for 42 cents. So it's been tough to compete, but thank God that our regular business is opening. So we're slowly pivoting back and doing a dual path to our sales business.
That's really helpful and actually a great segue into my next question for Yewande here. Talking about kind of going back, have you ever considered going back after changing your business, right? Is it okay to kind of think through continuing to rethink your business, right? And what you'll do with it?
Oh yeah. So in thinking about just skincare and beauty, the total addressable market is $800 billion by 2025. Whereas hair extensions was 2.5 billion. You know what I mean? By 2025. So you're just looking at sheer numbers, even though they are both very incredibly competitive spaces. The biggest thing that makes sense for me is I need brand awareness. So getting with my products are $25 to $50 now, as opposed to $300. Just by sheer numbers, they're going to get into more hands. So the more that I'm able to deliver a good quality product, good customer service, the more likely they will be able or interested in trying something new at a higher price, at a higher retail value, because they know me, right? We've established ourselves. We have social proof in the market. So it would make sense to go back later. However, that's not necessarily, set in stone. But I do have, because I'm still very tied to it. Like that was my baby. Like that's what started this whole entrepreneurial path. But I'm still in the beauty space. So I can go into hair. I can go into personal care. You know what I'm saying? But people need to know who we are and feel confident that, we're not just some fly by the night company.
That's great feedback. And I appreciate your perspective on the fact that, right, because you did one thing and now you're doing another, you can't incorporate that other thing again in the future. I think that that's, a great perspective, and keeping an open mind is probably very, very important, right? As an entrepreneur, as things change. So Glenn, I'm now going to change the frame of the conversation a little bit, and I want to talk about stakeholders. I know you work with a variety of stakeholders, right? You even incorporate some shareholders. How did you incorporate these individuals in making the decision to change the business to face shields when you needed to many months ago?
Thanks. Our internal shareholders were all, bought into what we needed to do. So that was great. And I saw people doing, being new to the company, I saw them in a different light in how effective they were. And it made me closer. It's the smallest company. We have about 70 employees, and it was fantastic. But I didn't incorporate our shareholders in the decision. It was critical to move fast and create a solution. So involving them would just have slowed us down. I've been involved with boards of directors before, and they've got to talk about it, and they have to take a couple of days and have to meet again, and they have to have lunch, and they have to do all that stuff. And I didn't want that. They didn't hire me to ask them permission to do something. They hired me to lead, create sales opportunity to drive revenue. And in this case, we made prototypes, started selling them. Then we informed them of what we were doing, and they're basically like, I call it the holy shit moment. Holy shit, what'd you guys do? This is incredible, right? So it could have been bad, but my experience, I have to go with my heart in where we go and understand all the factors. So that's how that came about.
Right, and I appreciate your perspective on having internal support, right? I think it's very, very important that the employees that you lead, right, as the leader of your company are with you, are behind you, and kind of understand the mission. And it sounds like you were able to really hone in on that, which is extremely helpful. And great to learn more about. Also good to know that occasionally you don't ask for permission, right? And you do what you need to do. I ask for forgiveness later, but occasionally it works out, right?
Right.
And everybody's happy.
Exactly.
Great. So Yewande, I now want to go a little bit back to this branding, right? And just understanding your organization, as a unique organization in the marketplace, in a marketplace that's very saturated, right? I know that you recently rebranded. It looks great. I know because I order, right? How important was the rebrand in pivoting your business and kind of establishing your brand in this marketplace?
So skincare, if most like the formulas, I would say that there's probably 10 main manufacturers, and they all are selling to the top companies that you use. So there's not really much differentiation within the formulas. It's really a lot of it's marketing. And for me, being someone that's new into skincare and being about intentional in not wanting to make my community of women feel bad, feel that they're lacking anything, like that was very much something that I wanted to bring, that you're not lacking anything, and that this product is not going to fill a void. This product is just going to enhance, an experience. So me and my boyfriend, we broke up, and he was my muse. He was the inspiration behind the product. And they say that when things happen, the best thing to do is get into work, right? So I just kept doing pop-up shops and connecting with women in the community. And the funny thing was, they would ask me, how did you do this? Like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, it was for my boyfriend. And they're like, what? You're not together anymore? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, that's at least you kept the business, or like, so then I started thinking about, I went through like a discovery period, like very much, like a moment of clarity, self-care, etc. And I'm like, how can, we make this a self-care moment and actually turn this thing on its ear, where it's not just buy this product, do this, etc., and making fun of the breakup. So in one of the body butter has mango butter. So it's called Let That Mango body butter. It's kind of like a joke. The body scrub is called No Scrubs, kind of off of the TLC song. The spray is called X Factor. So really, and people would just laugh, like, they're like, oh, that's funny, and just get a cork out of it. So the other thing was that I'm adding in just the self-care portion of it. So journals, things of that nature. So it's a complete experience of like not just skincare, but actually self-care, because we care about all of you, not just your skin, But that will just be enhanced based on what you're putting into your body and how you're taking care of yourself. So that was the rebranding, and I had to look at colors. I had to look at, and I spoke to my mentors about that. There was one or two logos that we scrapped because it wasn't, they kept me accountable. I would have moved in the wrong direction, and they're like, nope, that's not really giving me what you're saying, right? So that was the experience.
That's great. I appreciate your self-care mission at this moment. I think it's very, very important, especially in these times, to keep up with your self-care. So very much appreciated. And I appreciate that you bring up mentors again. To your point, it's very, very important to have people in your life, right? Kind of in your business life, especially, who are, one, holding you accountable as an entrepreneur, because it can be lonely. Yes. And two, providing that feedback and perspective, right? That you don't necessarily have yet, and or you're entering into territory that is not your forte, such as marketing. So very much appreciate all of that. I have one more question for you two, and then we're going to open it up to the audience here. So my last question to you two is, how did you manage kind of understanding the impact of your change and the potential risk of failure, right? Did you have any concerns that almost kept you from pivoting in the first place? And what finally pushed you to pivot? So Glenn, I'm going to start with you because you're unmuted.
Okay. There were no concerns that would have kept us from pivoting. And we finally pivoted for the specific purpose of saving 70 jobs and keeping our company out of bankruptcy. We have a manufacturing facility about 20 miles from our corporate offices in Providence. And, what we did was we kind of kept the corporate office personnel out of the loop. We needed them to focus on our normal day-to-day business. Didn't want them to get worried about what was happening because, all of a sudden their eyes off the ball and maybe thinking about leaving, although you really couldn't go anywhere at that point in time. We kept, obviously, the manufacturing people in the loop. So that's how we basically managed the change. And really, potential risk of failure, I think that was part of the question too, is failure was not an option. So it motivates you, inspires you. And, we had so many great ideas flowing to the point where we had to, shrink them down. So instead of the shotgun approach, the rifle approach, and we just made sure we spent enough time on all of those key ideas. So that's how we handled it.
Thank you, Glenn. I'd like to put this back to you, Yewande.
So for me, it was less of an investment. So actually, like the skincare, so just the cost of goods for the skincare was way cheaper than the cost of goods for the human hair extensions, and the profit margin was higher. So for me, it was just, I really didn't have anything to lose besides the fact that I had this tight grip, on the fact that I was attached to the hair extensions. Now, that's not actually true because I had inventory of the hair extensions. So I had to figure out how to get rid of the inventory without confusing my customer and do it in a way that was like I at least broke even. So I had to go on, Craigslist. I had to contact some people in salons to offload the inventory that way. So that was the biggest thing for me as far as like a risk, was just getting rid of the inventory. And then also the fact that I had to now rebrand, which paying for the marketing was paying for the new logo, et cetera. What else kept me from pivoting? That was mainly it. I felt like I in my mind, I believed I was making some traction with the hair extensions, but really I was just so tied to it. And what finally pushed me to pivot was, like I said earlier, my sisters. And they're like, listen to your customers. And while I was in the field, like doing pop-up shops, my customers would give me feedback right on the spot, or they're the ones who actually gave me recommendation for my second hero product. They're like, why don't you have a scrub? And I kept hearing that. So then I made the scrub. So it was just, being in the field and getting that direct feedback and just hearing people just excited about it and reordering. It was just a bonus.
That's great. Thank you so much. So Katie, I know that you're with us here on this call and you were going to monitor the chat. Do we have some questions in the chat for the panelists?
Yeah, we do have a question here in the chat. So this is for both panelists. What is one thing you have learned about yourself through pivoting your business that you didn't know before?
I can start if you want.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's funny because I had never been a CEO before. I was always like senior executive in charge of sales. But over the course of my career, I had, I was in charge of things like demand planning and sales operations and other aspects of the business. I ran global product for Reebok. So I had all these, different things that I was, touched me throughout my career. And I wanted to make sure that at some point I had the opportunity to use all those skills, which is one of the reasons I decided to go to this company. And what I found out is those skills came in great, and I was able to be, we saved a lot of jobs and kept our company alive. And we actually, somebody's actually buying our company right now. One of our shareholders is. So it's all been great. And I thank all the positions I've been in for the success we've had so far.
I would say for me, I've been in sales for, I don't know how many years in business sales, enterprise sales. I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm a software sales rep for Salesforce. And I did not realize how much I thought I did before, but how much every single thing that you're doing is actually a sale. The sale of an idea, the sale of just trying to get a mentor to work with you. Do you know what I mean? The sale of a vendor, everything is a sale. And I also learned that I actually, thus far, have pretty good discernment with choosing the right people to put around me. I think this is a huge thing that people have to understand. Surrounding yourself with wise counsel is to me can make or break you. So you have to really be discerning. And thus far, I've learned that that seems to be okay. But you keep learning because business is, it's the wild, wild west, right? There's a lot of things happening on both sides that you have to you can't do everything. So you have to put the right people around you. There's no such thing as, I guess, I don't want to ramble, but there's no such thing as like a solo, what do they say? I'm self-made. No, that's not true. Nobody's self-made because you have to have the right people around you.
Great, thank you guys so much. So let me just move on to the next one. What is your approach to risk assessment with markets that don't exist or that are relatively hidden? How do you predict whether something can make it in the market?
You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Yewande.
I guess because a lot, like right now, I have some stuff from personal brand, some personal care products that are currently being invented. I can't think of the word right now. It's been a long week, but really a lot of it is research, right? Like it's just you have to research the market and the customer and make sure that actually crosses with your specific company as well. So you really, I don't know how to really say this. You just have to research as much as possible and test the market. You can do pilots, you can do landing pages. I have so many different ways in which I'm staying in contact with my customers now with text messaging, maybe even getting a small group of customers, like a VIP group in which you can have them in a forum to test. Do you know what I mean? Like people that are really engaged with your product. That's the best thing that I can say, but really nothing is 100%. And you see what happens. And a lot of the times, like, look at how we've pivoted. You think that you're going to do something and then actually the market may say, actually, we want this. So.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Yewande. We're actually launching a lacrosse collection of pads in the spring. So I'm talking more about our normal business. And we've never done that before. So you've got to do the research. You've got to get out there into the business world. You have to sit in front of retailers. You have to, find the kids, the consumers that will ultimately buy it from the retailers or online. If you know lacrosse, we have somebody who's tight with the Duke lacrosse coach, which is one of the strongest programs in the country. And so we're touching every base to make sure that research aligns with, what our initial beliefs were and what we're trying to do. And then you got to sample, and then you have to get feedback, you have to wear test. There's a lot of different things that come about. And then at the end of the day, sometimes you can, we could actually sell that. We could partner with somebody who's like Warrior Lacrosse, and we could provide them padding, or we could go into market and launch it ourselves. So there's a million different things to think about, but it's like Yewande said, it's a lot of research, and you need to be focused. There's testing. There's all kinds of things that you have to do before you make a decision to launch a product. Because once you launch, and once you get everyone involved, there's a lot of a lot of time from everybody who's working on the project, and then you have to get involved in manufacturing and tooling costs and things like that. So research is the most important thing.
I will say, sorry if I could just add, one of the things that helped me, another Northeastern plug, I've had market research classes that have actually worked with me. So asking specific market research questions as it pertains to my company, they have been able to help come up with the research. So that's been helpful with a small company like myself. And, Northeastern students are incredible. So that's just something else, another plug for Northeastern.
Great, thank you guys so much. We just have a few more questions, so I'll keep on going. This is more targeted towards Glen. You mentioned the shotgun versus rifle approach. Many entrepreneurs are quick to take lots of shots on goal and start developing several ideas and products before succeeding with one. Why and how did you get focused?
So that's a great question. And I talk to my head of product, daily about that, because as we're getting more successful and people are, understanding who our brand is and they're buying the products, we're working on something that's really unique right now, and it's in regards to protection on a football helmet. So you need to understand what the potential opportunity is. Is there demand for this type of product? There's questions you need to ask, and if you don't ask them, you will be wasting time. Like, I'm not going to hire, more product managers just because we have a lot of people who are asking for product. We're going to keep our product team narrow and focused on the things that will drive the most business. Because otherwise you spread them out, like I talked about in the rifle approach, you spread them out and they can't get everything done. So that, the inline products that are driving all the sales, if you don't focus them, they'll get the same attention as something we may never sell. So if that's how you do it. So how do I manage it? I manage it through my managers. I mean, listen, I'm not the smartest guy, but I hire the best people, and you just make sure that they execute, your point of view on what's going on, and that's how we do it. So it's been very successful so far, but tantalizing to do more projects.
Thank you so much, Glen. So we have another 2 questions. You have shared a lot of great things for people to think about if they're considering pivoting their business. What is one key thing you would share with a fellow entrepreneur thinking about pivoting their business?
Who's that for?
Either one, anybody.
Giovannucci.
I would say what's driving it, right? Like what's driving it? Is your customer pulling for it, right? Because the best thing is if you have a customer pulling for it, then you're trying to push it down their throat. So I would ask these questions: what's driving that pivot? Again, and also the research behind it. Do you have the research to back, that this would be successful? And can you do a test? How small? What's this like a test run? Like what's the smallest? I guess I'm thinking about manufacturing because I'm slightly in manufacturing, but what's the smallest amount that you can do the test to see if this is viable to actually bringing as, a live product?
Yeah, from my perspective, we were forced into a pivot. If I was pivoting, considering pivoting our normal business, it'd have to be a whole business strategy on why you would do that, because you have a successful business where you're known in a specific market, and if you don't have the resources to attack that new pivot opportunity, and you have to do it with your current team, it's never going to work. So you really have to give a lot of thought to that before you go there. But as I tell my senior team, I'm open to anything. You come to me with an idea that we could potentially do, I'm all for it. And I'll raise the capital to make sure we attack that business, but we need to think it out and figure out what that looks like short term and long term.
Great, thank you guys so much. So we each have one last question, and this is more targeted to you, Yewande. So as CEO, can you talk about the decisions to pull in vendors, freelancers, and consultants to build a flexible team?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, you have to really have just really understand like what your strengths and your weaknesses are and identify those gaps and figure out how you're going to close them. One thing about me is I want to have 100% control over my company. So I've had so much time in which I've been building this on my own between time and money, etc. I didn't want to give away equity to bring in people to fill in those gaps. So in my thought process is it's better for me to pay for these gaps through consultants and vendors, etc., as opposed to bringing someone on that could, I don't know I have big plans for this company, and I don't want someone to just have gotten in at the right time and they have a certain percentage and I don't know. And I'm pretty tied to my business. The other thing is, as far as vendors, I've been, fortunate enough that I literally negotiate contracts, as a vendor or strategic partner, being that I work for Salesforce, and prior to Salesforce, I worked for Verizon doing the same thing. So I understand to a degree how to read contracts. I mean, it's different in every single industry. So I wasn't really uncomfortable there, but I also have a lawyer. I think that's important as well. You don't want to get yourself into a situation. And lawyers, I always tell people, some people are frustrated with lawyers, but they're actually the people that we do business with, because those are the contracts that you sign. Like, it's lawyers going back and forth. And then consultants and freelancers, like I said before, it's really just about identifying what gaps I had. Copywriting is not my thing. Creating the visuals is not my thing. So I really did research, and like I mentioned before, just having, I think, a little bit of discernment. Luckily, I've been able to get some good people, but I interview people as well, and I have questions. I don't just look at, even if it's a referral, I ask them. I try to see if there is something where they're tied into my business. And now the person I worked with to build my brand, the logo, she reposts all the time. Like, she's personally invested, even though she's worked with $1 million companies. She's just tied to it. I could tell that she connected with my vision, even though she had no equity.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. And that was the last of the questions that came through in the chat. So if Jack, you want to pop back on? Perfect.
Sure. Well, I want to thank our panelists tonight, Yewande and Glen and Katie for moderating, and Will for sharing your student experience. This is great. As I said, I think at the beginning, one of the great things, and Yewande, I appreciate you saying that, you know, Northeastern and students and the ecosystem for entrepreneurs that exists there, you know, is great. There's a lot of great tools there for people to use. Hopefully we're doing a better job of promoting those tools to get people more involved with it and share the resources. The Northeastern Network is also a great place to kind of learn and bounce ideas off of each other. You know, so we appreciate you all taking the time, sharing your story. As we know, every entrepreneur journey is different. You know, you can start your business and everything else, but every journey to get there is very different. So, you know, we appreciate you guys all taking time to kind of share those unique journeys and, you know, what you've learned, good and bad in some cases. We're going to also in the chat, we're going to leave a survey. We hope again that you can all fill that out. Provide any feedback you have. We're always open to any different ideas people might have for programming or opportunities to learn something. So please share those there. The event was recorded. We will put that up online and share it with everybody. So again, if you had friends or colleagues or somebody that couldn't attend tonight, please share that with them when we put it up there. And lastly, I'd like to highlight the Global Entrepreneurship Week. So this is very topical, leading into Global Entrepreneurship Week. Starts next Monday. And we're going to put the link to the website out there. We have a lot of great programs, and I think it's being kicked off by one that Katie is doing on Monday. So if you can attend that, please do. But we have 5 days of great programming coming next week, all geared and all around the entrepreneur industry. I won't call it an industry, but all around the entrepreneur industry. And it's also going to showcase a lot of the different aspects of the ecosystem and the number of different players within the ecosystem that are available to help people. So please, you know, if you have time next week, take a look at the website. Please attend some of those events. You know, good opportunity to, again, expand your network. We'll have a lot of different folks there attending the different programs. So always a great opportunity to expand that Northeastern network. So again, thank you very much. And everyone have a great evening.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Good night.